Titletown South Florida, brought to you by Orange Bowl. Since 1935, Orange Bowl's service and commitment to South Florida has been as diverse as the residents that live here. Over the past 2 decades, Orange Bowl and its partners have committed more than $40 million to improving the South Florida community through its Orange Bowl Cares initiative. To learn more, visit orangebowl.org. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Titletown South Florida, the Miami Herald's high school sports show. Titletown South Florida, brought to you by Orange Bowl. Back for another episode this week. I'm Deputy Sports Editor of the Miami Herald, Andre Fernandez, joined again by David Wilson, one of our sports writers and my co-pilot on this show, coming to you live from FLA Live Arena, or where do they practice?
FLA Live Arena, that's where
Okay.
I am. I think I got John Mayer behind me, sitting in the media lounge, about to head out to their practice. But
not the real John Mayer. That'd be a hell of a guest to have.
That'd be a good guest. We got some good guests coming up later, though.
Yeah, we do. And we're going to talk a little. This is our spring football preview edition. We're going to talk. We've been teasing about this a couple of weeks now, but this is it. We're 1 week away. So we decided to bring on a couple of special guests, like David mentioned. We're going to have 2 of the new coaches, not new coaches themselves overall, but new coaches being head coaches at 2 of the high-profile programs in town. We're going to be talking to Coach Ron Thornton from Homestead High, who took over the program after Coach Philip Simpson left to the University of Nebraska. Obviously, the Broncos coming off the big year, getting to state for the first time ever. They lost to St. Thomas, but trying to take the next step. So we'll talk about how that offseason has gone for them. And also, Miami Northwestern, every time there's a coaching change there, it's big news. So they've brought in one of their own, Michael Lee Harris, former wide receiver for them back during the days of him and Teddy Bridgewater trying to win state championships back then. He takes over from Max Edwards, who was there for a while, won multiple state titles. So we'll talk to him as well. We'll talk a little bit. We'll sneak in a little recruiting chat, David and I, right now before we get to our special guests as well. But we're also going to salute some of the top performances around town like we do. Our voter polls, as always, are open as of now on MiamiHerald.com. So vote for who you think was the best performer in Dade and Broward this past week. And we'll talk a little bit about, with a month left going on in the spring sports season, kind of what's going on with that on the world of baseball and a few other sports. So, David, talking about this, it's almost springtime. I know it's not exactly the real thing yet, but it's finally, for those that are football starved, or especially high school football starved, it's the first chance to get to see some of the teams in action again. What storylines are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, right. It's the first chance to really kind of start thinking about these. Obviously, the transfers will keep happening into the summer, but for the most part, these rosters are set. To me, and not to just keep it on the coaches we have here, but one of the most interesting stories to me is going to be whether Homestead can sustain what they built over the last couple of years with Philip Simpson. Seems like they should. They've got Josh Townsend, their quarterback, coming back. They got some transfers coming into, right? We wondered if there was going to be an exodus outward. Instead, they actually, got some guys, including some guys who moved to South Florida. That's really high on the list of storylines to me. I think the dynasties, the St. Thomas Aquinas and Central in particular, can anyone rise to challenge them, or are going to be those are kind of the 2 biggest stories I think we're going to have. And whether it can be Homestead challenging St. Thomas Aquinas again in 3M or in 2M with Central. Obviously, we're going to talk to you're going to talk to Northwestern coach Michael Lee Harris, as you said, but also Norland. That's the other team that seems to have maybe, sort of similar to Homestead. They've got a great dual threat quarterback, and it seems like they're kind of going all in to try to win a state championship and build around him. So those are kind of the 2. I'm interested to see if the programs that, Norland's been there before, but not in a while. The programs that are kind of on the verge can take that next step, and that obviously starts in the spring.
Yeah, and this is where the foundation continues to be planted, like you said. And Homestead, we talked about before, the Raiders at St. Thomas, they're always loaded. They always reload. And I know they brought in a few kids as well. But Homestead, like you said, we all wondered, would they stay together? But it seems like Joshua Townsend, and a bunch of the key guys from that team. I know Kimani Corbett's another guy that's looking to make a bigger impact this year too. We'll talk to Coach Thornton about that shortly, but it was good that they got a familiar voice like him, who had been an assistant under Simpson for a while, and literally right on the field at Drive Pink Stadium. I remember Phil said his goodbyes and said, "Here's your new coach." And like he came in, had the first kind of little, huddle conversation with them formally as the coach, and that's it. And then they've basically been able to keep it together. But without any further ado, let's bring in Coach Thornton here, and show you our conversation that we're going to have with him, and talk a little bit about this coming season. Can they top the Raiders, or can they, repeat what they did last year? All right, we're here with Coach Ron Thornton at Homestead High. He is walking the hallways right now. Coach, you said you got the pre-spring itch, man. Tell me a little bit about that. Your first year as head coach with the Broncos. How excited are you for this opportunity? And, just kind of to try and keep it rolling. I mean, you guys made history last year.
You know what, man? Thanks for having me. First and foremost, I'm actually I'm in the process of a little schedule change here, so just teaching in the building. But I mean, listen, man, we're really excited about everything that's to come. I mean, I'm a couple months in, getting pretty good reviews from the kids and the coaches and things like that about some of the things that we've been doing. It's exciting times, man, for sure.
Yeah, Coach. So, I mean, it started this offseason, and just with the commitment of the kids to the program, coming off the state final, the historic first time. Tell us about that, and just working with these guys these last few months to keep this going, because you made, like we said before, you made history this year, to build off of that, and just see that all the guys stuck together and stayed with the program. What was that like?
It's been refreshing, man. It's been very refreshing. I mean, going back to the historic season, I mean, that was something that we wanted to capitalize on. Just kind of representing the city of Homestead well. Am I there? Got alarms going on. I got all kind of stuff going on, man. That's right. But it was refreshing to get that done, and then I mean, just the carryover from the last year's team and last year's season to where we are now, man. We've had amazing attendance. I mean, we've been in the weight room and getting outside and doing all those things since about February. We opened up the weight room in March to, optional lifting and voluntary lifting and things like that. And our attendance has been amazing ever since the end of the season. I mean, led by the senior class of young men who are eager to get back to work and make another state championship run. So just leading, being led by those guys it's been rather easy for me as the head coach, just kind of stepping into this role.
Coach, what did it mean to you to be the one that they passed the torch to when Coach Simpson, got his opportunity and left? What did that mean to be, when they handed that to you there?
You know what? It was actually something that's always been in the making. I mean, because with Coach Simpson, he's like an older brother to me, and so he would always tell me, or just kind of like keep me in the loop about some of the things that he had going on outside of football and some of the opportunities that he would eventually pass up, but we wouldn't be able to pass him up for long, and so it was something that we talked about as a staff prior to the transition happening. But it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me, to be able to have the guys kind of support of the decision that was made. I mean, it wasn't any fuss or anything like that from the players or the coaches that we retained. And it's helped out my transition. It's helped out my transition a great deal. And I'm just really excited, really fortunate to be able to continue to carry the torch of everything that we've started over the last couple of years.
Coach, Joshua Townsend was such a big part of this team, not just offense, but I'm talking like this team as a whole, on and off the field. How much did you see him grow last year in those aspects, not just as a football player, but as the leader you want him to be?
He's everything you want out of a quarterback. He's everything you want out of a quarterback off the field. I mean, he brings everybody along. It's one of those things where he understands that he can't do it by himself, but he does inject his personality, his will to win, his leadership qualities all throughout this team on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I mean, he's one of the hardest workers in the weight room. I mean, even in terms of, like his numbers and things like that in the weight room, I mean, he's, top 5 in just about every category. I mean, just a testament of the hard work that he does off the field, and in the weight room and stuff like that. And so is again, man, he definitely makes my job a whole lot easier. Definitely makes my transition a whole lot easier.
Yeah, tell us about that offense. I mean, you bring back a lot of guys from last season, don't you? How's it looking going into the spring?
Man, listen, we look good. We look explosive. We added some size up front with the offensive line. We added a running back, a local running back from one of the neighboring schools in the community. He'll be a really big help. And then, our receiver core, I feel like our receiver core is one of the best in the country. You know what I mean? That's even after losing guys like Richard Dandridge and Javon Robinson and things like that. We have some young, eager guys who are ready to show what they can do to kind of keep the offense moving. And listen, everything the offense has, everything the offense will do, it starts with Joshua Townsend, and he's done a really good job of keeping those guys on board and just kind of keeping them prepared for what's happening.
And I know one thing that under Coach Simpson and you guys were for a few years now, that you guys on defense were one of the best defensive teams overall.
Right.
I mean, and that was something you guys prided yourselves in. How's that side of the ball looking? How do you see them also going into the spring?
Well, we that was my side of the ball, so it's a little different for me. But I have a guy who I trust. He's been my defensive back coach for the past couple of years. He'll step in and we won't change very much. I mean, we just like we did on the offensive line, we added a little beef. We added some beef with the defensive line as well. I mean, over the past couple of years, we've kind of went about it with undersized, hungry guys. But just to kind of add that beef, add a little more weight and size up front is going to be really good for guys like Eduardo Nunez, who he's been the centerpiece of the defense the last couple of years. We bring a kid like Rashad Snow back home. Lance Grant, he'll go into his junior year, he had a stellar sophomore campaign. And, just kind of getting all those guys going. So we have a lot returning on the defensive side of the ball as well, a lot of experience, a lot of returning experience, a lot of state championship experience. And so we're really excited about that side of the ball as well.
Coach, what would you consider a successful spring? Like, what would be the one thing if you accomplish, from now, a month from now, where you would consider it a successful spring?
That's a really good question. I would have to go with health. I mean, obviously we want to get out of here without any injuries. And then just continuing to build around our player-led program. I think that part is going to be really huge for us. With the guys that we have, the guys that that we anticipate coming in, is really important that the culture continues, right? Culture is something that we pride ourselves on, especially the last couple of years. And so it's something that we've generated, and it's something that everybody can't be a part of. It's not for everybody, but those that are going to be a part of our program is really important that they understand the culture of what we have going on there.
Coach, it was great to see you. Great to see the team, what they did last year. I know the area must be really excited for you guys. It had been a long time since Homestead football reached the heights it has in the last few years. So we hope you guys are able to continue to keep it going this year and beyond. So we'll see if we can get out there soon during the spring. But we appreciate your time and thank you for joining us on Titletown.
Sounds good, man. Bronco Nation, stand up. Thanks for having me.
There you go. All right. And now we're going to talk, basically, before we bring in Coach Harris, we're going to talk a little bit more about that loaded class, and that's 2M. We said all the time, it's the most loaded class in the country. I got to think with the amount of talent on all these teams, when you think about Central reloading, Norland, which people are wondering if all that talent's going to gel and really become a team that can beat Central. But then this Northwestern team is intriguing too, because not just the new coach, but they're going to have a new quarterback. They're going to have a few positions that they have to fill, a few key spots on the field. And then Booker T, and then American Heritage, Cardinal Gibbons. I mean, again, just completely stacked. I mean, that's one of the storylines I'm most looking forward to this spring.
Yeah, Northwestern is going to be interesting because Max Edwards, who led them to 3 state championships there, they've always had a great defense, right? He's a defensive mastermind, probably, he was the best defensive coordinator in South Florida before he took that job. And then at Northwestern, every year, no matter who the personnel, it wasn't always like they had like a bunch of SEC, future Miami Hurricanes on that defense. It didn't matter who they threw out there, guys who, they were always good players, sometimes like FIU, FAU type recruits. Didn't matter who they threw out there. They were holding teams. They were in the backfield all the time. They were holding teams in, single digits, low double digits. Michael Lee Harris is an offensive guy. Obviously, the last couple of years they had Teron Dickens, who's a record-setting quarterback at Miami Northwestern. He's graduated. He's gone. They've had some obviously great wide receivers. Michael Lee Harris, who was part of that staff, I want to say Teron Dickens' freshman year when they beat Orlando Jones in the state championship, had some really good wide receivers back then. It's a transitional year, right? Anytime you had a quarterback who started for 4 years and set all those records, finding the next guy is going to be hard, but they've got the guy theoretically in place who can do that. I wonder about what the defense is going to look like, but the offense, I think just with him running the program there and knowing the track record he has of developing an offense there, I think they should be really good on that side of the ball, at least.
Well, let's talk a little bit about it with Coach Harris, and here's our interview with him. All right, we're here with Miami Northwestern's new football coach, Michael Lee Harris. Not new to the staff, but new to being the head coach. You're heading into your first season, and I must be getting old because my memories of you, Coach Harris, were catching passes from Teddy Bridgewater and going to state, that sort of thing. It's amazing how time flies, but congratulations on this new job, this new opportunity at your alma mater, especially. That must be something special for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Time definitely flies, and it becomes kind of surreal because this is what you're being taught when you're a teenager, that you're going to blink your eye one day and you're going to be, an adult. You're going to be a parent. You're going to be a coach. You're going to be in the shoes of the people who gave you the wisdom when you was a teenager and when you was in high school. So it's always surreal when you blink your eye and you're the one telling the next generation that. So it's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, tell us about that because, you've been there a little bit now. How many years have you been on staff already with Northwestern?
I was there back in 2019 and 2020 when we were state champions. And then the next year we lost to American Heritage, and they went on to win state, I think, against Tallahassee Rickards. Mm-hmm. So I was on that staff, on those two staffs, and then in between, I took a promotion to be offensive coordinator at Miami Carol City. So that's where I landed at before I was able to come back home. And just the full circle of things, being a two-way athlete when I was at Miami Northwestern, learning a lot, seeing a lot, being blessed to have a lot of opportunities. We went to Oregon, went to state a lot, went to Texas relays when I ran track. And now that I'm back as the head coach, it's a great blessing that I get to share those experiences and use them as stepping stones to give back to our student athletes, to make sure that they can take the resources that we have, take the knowledge that we have, and take it further in life than what we was able to take it to.
Tell us a little bit about that, because you're being a young coach. These kids can definitely, I'm sure, relate to you, and a lot of them, not just from there, but from playing Pop Warner, playing youth, from their youth. How's that helped you in this transition to things to just happen more smoothly as you head into the spring, your first year?
Well, it has been a benefit because the cycle of life keeps going, and when I say that, I say it in the sense of there are great Hall of Fame players that I don't know of, that came before my time, and I have to do my research on them, for me to have awareness about them, right? And being that I'm still young and still in a closer age bracket, this social media generation can look me up and see and still quite remember when they were in elementary attending Miami Northwestern games, or when they were young student athletes and watching University of Louisville playing. So it is beneficial because when we talk about this generation, they want to see for themselves if one, what you're teaching them, what you're telling them to do works, if you're capable of doing it, and you're not just making something up. They want to know if you're relevant. So it helps that they can do the research, and some of them can remember, oh, I was 3 years old, 5 years old, or I have a glimpse of coming to the state championship when you guys lost to Sanford Seminole. So it works in that sense where they can remember playing with, or I'm sorry, seeing me play with guys like Teddy Bridgewater, playing with guys like Devontae Parker at University of Louisville, playing with guys like Eli Rogers. And that's where it helps me at, because being still young, I can still get out there and do a lot of the drills. Well, all of the drills that we put them through. And when you talk about technique and fundamentals, you can visually show them and give them a visual representation of what it's supposed to look like and why you have to do it in a certain manner. What's the reasoning behind what you're telling them? What's the method to the madness? And it's easier when it's coming from somebody that's closer in your age bracket. Like when you're talking about this generation, we're all getting old, right? If I name certain people like Ray Lewis or name certain names, this generation may say, I don't know who that is. And that's what I mean, like about when the cycle of life, it just repeats itself. Because for me, there were athletes that my coach had to say, you don't know that athlete? You didn't know this athlete? How you not know this name? And fast forward to me being the head coach, those are the responses I get now. So because I'm a younger coach, my career just ended not too long ago. There's still some remembrance of me in those shoes from my student athletes, and that's the pro that I play with. And then not only that, just being from the community, a lot of those student athletes, they have uncles and fathers who were around when I was participating, when my career was still going. So they can speak from, a relevant spectrum and say, no, your new head coach was this, he was that, you need to listen to him. And, some of those student athletes remember their uncles or fathers talking about me, or talking about certain games. So that's right. the good thing. And one day there's going to be a younger coach coming in, and I'm going to be the older coach passing it down to a younger coach. So it's just a cycle of life. And right now in this moment, the youth is a pro.
Yeah. How much do you think that's going to be a benefit to you? Because you having grown up there, how much they care about the program, how much the community, just bleeds that blue and gold and really cares. Like, how much do you think there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, but also you understand the passion of why that is the case? Like, how much do you think that's going to help you too as you go forward?
It helps me tremendously, because that's what makes it no pressure for me. I know what to expect. I understand the culture. I understand the tradition. I understand what comes with being the head coach of Miami Northwestern. So it's no pressure for me. This is what I signed up for. This is what I want to do. This is my passion. I enjoy the analytical part of it. I enjoy the first take part of it. That's what makes sports what it is. Everyone has their opinion. Everyone, is rooting for this guy. Everyone is rooting for that guy. Everyone is a stands coach, a sideline coach, and everyone has an opinion and suggestion. I love that atmosphere. That's what made me thrive in my career, because that was the atmosphere that helped us be prepared for the next two levels. When we got from Miami Northwestern and got to University of Louisville, we were already used to open practices. We were already used to when the university allowed the fans to come to practice, and you had to sign autographs and do these different things, because that's what we saw at Miami Northwestern. Practice looked like a game on normal basis, and everyone had an opinion. But that's what makes sports fun, being able to wake up in the morning and get Stephen A's opinion, get Skip Bayless's opinion, get Shannon Sharp's opinion. So it's no pressure for me. I think the preparation, what I have been blessed to learn and continue to study and continue my room to grow, is what give me my confidence to know that we're going to be able to bring the culture back and continue the tradition. So it's really it's fun. I'm in awe. I'm enjoying the entire process. I'm grateful. Again, it's a blessing. It's prestigious to me. You know, in this community, we believe this is one of the best high schools in the nation. So being the leader who gets to build a platform to get us back to that and get us back to letting the world see what our community has to offer, what our student athletes have to offer, and then exposing the next generation to the world. You know, using this platform, football, as an avenue to get them where they really want to be in life, to be successful in life, to let them see that there's a bigger world out there than just Miami, Florida. You know, that there's a bigger than Dade County. So I enjoy it. I don't see no pressure with it. This is what makes it fun. You know, this is what makes it Miami Northwestern.
Yeah, it's great to see, Coach. I'm glad you're embracing this, and I think it's going to be, you know, obviously it's going to be cool to see you doing this too. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about this team, because I know that obviously there's a few guys that are going to come into new, you know, starting roles this year. I know one that everybody is probably going to be talking about for sure is the quarterback, because Tiger was so good for you guys the last few years. How's that competition sort of looking like? What's that picture kind of look like on offense going into the spring?
So right now, I want to provide a collegiate and professional atmosphere where we're competing through drills and in the weight room. We're competing on the chalkboard. We're competing by watching film, and that is our way of growing mentally. Because what I explain to my student athletes are everyone can catch, everyone can throw, everyone can run. You know, what separates you is your IQ, knowing what to do, when to do it, you know, and playing at a high level, high intensity. So to be able to do those things, you got to have the proper knowledge. You got to understand the game. Then you have to be in the physical condition to be able to perform it, play after play, play after play, play after play. You know, being able to play 60 plays at high intensity. So again, that's what makes football. That's what makes sports. You know, the competitive edge. And when you're talking about a team like Miami Northwestern, who last year went 6-5, and those 5 losses came from all state contenders. You lost twice to Central, who's arguably one of the best teams in the nation last year. You lost to Chaminade, who was a state champion. You lost to Homestead, who was a state runner-up to St. Thomas. You lost to Columbus, who was a state champion. You know, and you bring back, I would say, 69% of the team, and a lot of those guys were in the 2026 class. It's exciting. And the quarterback position, I believe, as an offensive guy, is probably the most important position on the field. You know, you're a field general, you're a leader, you command the cadence, you command the line of scrimmage. So having a room of guys to compete is the win first as a head coach. A lot of times you see at these different high schools or on this level in general where you just have one guy. You know, you don't have a backup to push them, or you don't have 2 or 3 guys, especially in this generation. You know, they label this generation the microwave generation, where nobody really wants to wait their turn. So I'm just, you know, excited and ecstatic about having 3 guys in that room that's ready to compete. And so far, everyone has been busting their butt, making sure they're on time, making sure they're giving their best effort, making sure they're very attentive, being in every film room, every meeting room with a notepad, taking notes, you know, and getting bigger, faster, stronger in the weight room and in our conditioning drills. So that is what makes us excited to be coaches, being able to grow and knowing that the list of coaches the list of quarterbacks that came through Miami Northwestern, not just Tiger, those are big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a list of guys that was tremendous, you know, whether they went on to play in the NFL or not. They were stepping stones for the tradition of Miami Northwestern. So it's great to be able to have, and then those guys are huge. You know, we're looking at 6'6" at quarterback with Adrian Posse, and then Randy Phillips III is also 6'6". Then Leon Strouder is 6'3" himself. You know, look 6'4". So these guys are big guys, and this is a blessing to have a room like this, especially like I said, in the microwave society where most of this generation wants to walk in the situation starting already. So to be able to have this competition going on right now, it's what breed championships. I don't know any teams on the Pop Warner level, the high school level, the collegiate level, or the professional level that are champions without competition from within. So
Right.
this is what's going to make us as a team. This is what's going to get us back to that national contending caliber with being able to have multiple guys competing at every position.
Mm-hmm. Tell us, I asked another coach earlier in the show this, but a month from now, I know the spring is the spring, and then obviously there's still a process the next few months that once you get to the season, but what would you, a month from now, what would you look back on this spring session? What would you consider to say, okay, this was a successful spring for Northwestern? What would have to happen?
Everyone growth and development. When I get to the summer, I want to look back and be able to say, okay, we were able to conquer these installs. We were able to conquer these technique and fundamentals. We were able to gain this weight for this particular position or this particular athlete. We were able to learn more football, and we got in greater shape. I like to, especially at a school like Northwestern, being kind of biased because that's where I graduated from. That's where I played the majority of my career at. I believe that Miami Northwestern is one of those high schools that's very prestigious, and the collegiate atmosphere of high school football. So that is what I want to prepare them for. And when you look at you see spring OTAs, you see spring ball, you see conditioning, you see mat drills, you see those competition drills. And when I get to the summer, I want to be able to say, I know based on who was already here in the spring, who's going to compete, knowing who's going to be a leader, knowing the make of my team was created in the spring. I'll be able to look back and say, we got a lot accomplished because now basic installs, these guys know off the top of their head. They're teaching each other the installs. They're teaching each other quick game. They're teaching each other zone schemes and gap schemes. They're teaching each other, how to step with the right foot, step at a 45-degree angle, get to the right V of the neck when we're talking about blocking and, setting with our hands up and knowing what's a under front, knowing what's a under G, a over G, knowing how to declare the mic, knowing how to declare the strength of a defense based on film, knowing how to watch film, knowing what to look for when we're watching film, because a lot of our student athletes, they have to be taught that. So when I get to the summer, me and my staff, and we're looking back and we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and we're checking the box on what made a successful spring, that's what we're looking for. We're looking to see who was able to grow, who was able to develop, who was able to grasp the concepts that we were teaching, who was able to get bigger, faster, stronger, and put their body in a physical condition to be prepared for the summer grind, and now propel themselves in such a manner that now they're ready for the season. So I'm looking at a development standpoint. I think this is the developmental part of the year. You're learning, you're growing, you're teaching, you're seeing who's who, you're seeing what type of team you have, and you're preparing for the summer grind. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say is what we look back on and determine if we had a good spring or not.
Yeah. And how do you feel about just, you mentioned it already with, this group, this class that you're in. I mean, you've coached on it at your alma mater, you've done it at Carroll City, now head coach at your alma mater, going into this region that's, central, everybody talking about how Norland's loaded up, and then obviously Booker T is not far off. To take your team into this fight, tell us a little bit about how much you're going to enjoy that challenge, of going into that and striving for that goal that you talked about getting Northwestern back to that point where it's so used to being.
So here's the analogy I want to use for that question.
Okay.
When you look at recruiting on the next level, some of the powerhouse coaches on the next level will tell you that they recruit from certain schools and certain areas, and they're looking for guys who know what it's like to win, guys who know what it's like to play in these type of atmospheres, guys who they don't have to teach to be prepared to go into Tennessee. You know, we going to Tennessee that holds 100,000+. We want guys who have been there before. And I use that analogy because I played on the national championship team with Ja'Cory Harris. We went to SMU and we had to go into a hostile environment. You know, we had a crazy schedule my sophomore year, you know, and then every year after that, you had to play Central twice. Then after you beat Central in my junior year, the year we went to state and we fell short against Sanford Seminole, we had to beat Central in the regular season, which we lost. That spring, prior to that season, going into the season, we lost to North Miami Beach. The kickoff classic that season, we lost to Cal Poly, Long Beach Poly, who came down for the Nike kickoff classic. Then making it out the season, our 4 games before the FHSAA state championship was Central, Columbus, Killian, and Miramar, which was loaded with Geno Smith, Stedman Bailey, you know, those type of guys. So this is not nothing new. And that is what my youth and my experience from being in the culture and tradition brings to the table. Like we don't see any pressure with this. This is what makes Northwestern. We did not become Miami Northwestern by playing against, you know, whatever lower level teams or lower level talent and beating on those teams week in and week out. No, we became Miami Northwestern because years ago in our history, we had to play against a Miami South Ridge team that was very loaded. He had to play against a Miami Carol City team that was very loaded. So this is just the Dade County football that we're used to. This is nothing new for us. Like Miami Booker T is always a good team. You know, Miami Central is always a good team. You know, years ago in history, Miami Jackson was always a good team. That's why it was called the Soul Bowl. So it's getting my student athletes in the community to understand, which they already understand, that this is what comes with, you know, Miami Northwestern. If this is what you want, then this is the school for you. You know, and when you come here, you know you signing up to play against this type of schedule, to play against these type of athletes who are just as good as you. You know, so there's no pressure with that. That's what we look forward to.
Definitely, and we look forward to seeing you, Coach, and seeing your team soon this spring. So we'll be out there. I'll try to be out there soon, or David, one of us will be out there covering you guys and seeing as you progress on this journey to get Northwestern back to the top. And we appreciate you joining us on Titletown South Florida. Wish you the best this spring, Coach. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me, man. You guys have a good remainder of your day.
You as well. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, we thank Coach Harris and Coach Thornton for joining us. We look forward to seeing them and their teams in action for the next month or so, not just in practices, but later on when they get to their spring scrimmages and so on as we get closer to the fall. Now we're going to show you, as we mentioned before, we have our players of the week, as we talked about, MiamiHerald.com. If you want to vote for them, it's unlimited. You can vote as many times as you want for them. Here are the candidates for Dade this week, mostly from the baseball fields, and that'll be Carlos Chacon from Columbus. Went 8 for 11 with 2 home runs, a double, a triple, and a combined 7 RBI to lead the Explorers to the GMAC championship. That was a combined stat line for 3 games there, and also a key victory over West Broward, as the Columbus looks like they've locked up the 2 seed behind Douglas in the region. Aaron Hernandez from Westminster Christian struck out 10 in a big victory for Westminster over Doral Academy 7-1, and Westminster now on a roll, starting to win some games here toward the end. They had hit a little bit of a tough stretch, but 6 in a row as of this recording. Brianna Fields at Coral Reef softball went 3 for 4 with a double, 2 RBI, made a great defensive play as Coral Reef beat rival Palmetto. They won their second GMAC title in the past 3 years for the Barracudas. They seem to be catching some momentum now in Class 7A as we approach the regionals. And then we got a couple of kids, Palmetto Katarina Salasas repeated as the GMAC badminton champion. Palmetto becoming a powerhouse again in that sport, and they won their second in a row GMAC championship. And the girls track and field, we had districts last week. Ariana Garcia won both 100 and 400 meter hurdles, as well as the triple jump at District 16-2A for Carrollton. She's also one of our players. And then in Broward, Brandon Ostalaza from Flanagan, who led them to a big upset win over Archbishop McCarthy, went 2 for 3 with 3 RBI. Ian Guevara for Cypress Bay struck out 9, leading the Lightning to a win over Taravella. Taylor McGovern from Douglas Girls Lacrosse had 6 goals, led them to the district championship win over Palmetto. Boys volleyball, Gabriel Najad from Cardinal Gibbons had 45 assists and a win over Western. Michaela Landry qualified for state. She's a tennis player at Pinecrest. The state tennis tournament going on this week, and Pinecrest, as usual, well represented on that side of it. But now I want to talk a little bit more about, before we get to wrap up the show, the 2 classes we didn't hit on were 4M and 1M. And I know 4M last year where we left off was Columbus in dramatic fashion, running the Philadelphia Eagles Nick Foles play, beat Apopka to win the title. I mean, and it sounds like the Explorers are loaded once again. I mean, they brought in Willis McGahee on defense, had a few additions there. But Columbus could have been the start. This could be now them really joining that upper echelon and winning championships consistently.
Yeah, obviously we're going to talk about 1M in a second too, but it's like the clear 4 favorites, I think, in the 4 classifications that we care about are going to be the defending champions. And, you know, that's a lot of times the case, but I think this year especially, like Central is coming off a national title. I think they're going to be in that mix again. St. Thomas Aquinas, it's hard to ever pick against them. Same goes for Chaminade right now. Columbus is kind of, I think, in the, they were the least convincing champion, right? I mean, what does that matter? But it was, came down to overtime, right? That's probably the most competitive of these, of the classifications. Last year was the most where it felt like a couple of different teams could have won. But they're going to be awesome again this year. And like you said, they bring back Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback. They've got loaded up on defense, TJ Capers, Dalen Russell, who's our defensive player of the year. You said added Willis McGahee. They got to rebuild the offensive line, I think, a little bit, but for the most part, they got the quarterback and they got the defense, and that's good enough for me to feel really good about them coming into the year.
And it'd be good if they get somebody.
By the way, I said Fernando Mendoza meant Alberto Mendoza.
Alberto Mendoza, older
brother, who was
and we
quarterback
know
before him.
And we know he watches the show, so sorry about that, Alberto. We got your name right now. So, but they have to replace. Also, they have to get some playmakers like they had with Cedric Irvin last year. A guy. Their offense always, is so much better when they have that threat out of the backfield to catch passes and expand and just spread things out. So we'll see who they can come up with there. And yeah, I mean, I put a little spot in here for 1M, but we know Chaminade is going to be the team that rolls there. I mean, I think 4M is intriguing, though, because I think rumors of Western's demise are a little exaggerated. I think even though they lost Colin Hurst, it sounds like they've reloaded a bit. Coach Ratt's got a good squad coming back there.
Yeah, I mean, again, they've been the team that's been trying to get over the hump for so long, right? And them and Palmetto is the other one in that mix. Like those, I've heard really good things about where Western, how Western feels like they are right now. I'm very interested. They're kind of a team I'm interested to see this spring, just because again they lost some really important pieces. You mentioned Colin Hurst, Matthew Wilson, Santana, like those kind of core guys to their offense. But Coach Rack always coaches up a great offensive line there. They've always got talent. And I know I've been hearing good things about what they feel like they have. So they're the other team. And then Palmetto is, obviously they go toe to toe with Columbus. I think they played 3 times last year, right? It feels like they play 3 times every year. There will be challenges in 4M. 1M, as you mentioned, Chaminade, at least down here right now, no one is in their class so far. Obviously some smaller schools trying to get there, right? True North had a good year. Archbishop Carroll had a good year. Like those teams are all trying to get there, right? Avant-Garde, I think, has some talent, has built it up over the last couple of seasons. Their biggest challenges, though, are going to be from outside the area, whether it's a Trinity again or teams from Tampa. There's some other teams in that class, but at least down here, it's hard to pick. It's hard to imagine Chaminade not making another run to the state title. Yeah,
another team that I know
they got a lot back too. I mean, they got the 2 best wide receivers in South Florida. They got a great quarterback. They've got a running back who's been Broward Player of the Year. Like they didn't lose a whole lot other than on the offensive line.
No, exactly. And one of the teams too that I think on the Broward side, I know we talked about but I think Monarch too on the north end is one to keep an eye on too. I know they were
quietly had like a great year last year. Yeah.
And it sounds like they've still sustained their roster pretty well and maybe added some pieces as well to kind of have a chance at least to maybe make a little bit of a push. But again, like we said before, if you and I forget to mention, as we usually do, if you're watching this on MiamiHerald.com or on YouTube, you can also catch this as a pod. You can hear it in your car. It's on Spotify, Apple, all the major podcatchers have it as always. But David and I will both be out there. David more so once the Panthers are done, which sounds like it could be soon, unfortunately for them, the way the Bruins are handling them in this series. But we'll be bringing you a lot of coverage of spring football this year and kind of looking at, as we said before, a lot of the players, coaches, storylines that are going to be developing as we get closer to the fall and closer to the 2023 football season. So for David Wilson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks, everybody, for joining us once again. We'll see you next week. Titletown South Florida, brought to you by Orange Bowl. Since 1935, Orange Bowl's service and commitment to South Florida has been as diverse as the residents that live here. Over the past 2 decades, Orange Bowl and its partners have committed more than $40 million to improving the South Florida community through its Orange Bowl Cares initiative. To learn more, visit orangebowl.org.